But I want to be clear that the real reason to do universal design for learning isn't just to make access, but to make better learning in general. So I wanted to, I've done this before, once in Ireland, I apologize, but I just want to show what it means to do a multiple representation. Just because we're a little bit late, I want to go quick. I would typically love to play you a little bit of this Bach piece and ask you to comprehend it. Can you all go with me and say if I did that, you probably wouldn't comprehend it, okay? Just play it and say, write me an essay of what's going on here. You wouldn't be able to do it. Okay, good. Some of you would. There'd be a difference. But if I gave you another representation of it, this representation, some in the audience would actually be able to quickly know what was going on in the piece and would comprehend it. Still, for the vast majority of you, that would probably not be the case. You wouldn't understand it. So I wanted to show you in new media, this is a print representation. In new media, there's many ways to represent. So let me show you a representation. This is the Bach in a way that digital media allows. Watch this next phrase, very clear visually, but hard to hear. It's always hard to stop Bach. At any rate, and if I had more time, I'd like to kind of go into a fugue piece, but I think I'm going to skip it for now. But what this does is really allows you to see the structure of complicated music, because in the fugue piece, you get to see, there's a little theme there, and you get to recognize it quickly visually and to see it coming. And you can see that, oh my God, Bach turns it upside down, and he stretches it out, and he does cool things with his theme, which you don't hear very well at all. But in another representation, you see what Bach has done, what a fugue is, and how he's played with that theme again and again and again in different contexts. A beautiful representation. So even people who can't read music, even people who don't have good pitch, can understand and comprehend what Bach is doing in a new way. And I have to say, I love to do these. There's hundreds of these on the web now, before I go to a concert, because I start to understand the music, and now I'll understand it more. And lastly, I want to say, because sometimes people think universal design for learning is about those poor, unfortunate people with disabilities. My favorite story on this is after viewing these, I thought this is fabulous for me. And I have a friend who is a musicologist. He teaches music, and I wanted to show it to him. I went to his place and said, can I show you this visualization of Bach's Toccata and Fugue? And he said, oh, David, I know the piece. You know, I've played it hundreds of times. And I kept trying to convince him. And he said, I teach it, I know the piece. Let's talk about sports. And so his daughter, luckily, was there, a teenager, and she said, Dad, why don't you just look at it? So he says, okay. So we go through the thing, and the fugue is really rich, because it's much more complicated, but you start to really see it. Anyway, so he's glued to the screen after a few minutes of being hesitant. And then at the end, he says, wow. I never understood what Bach was doing with that whole middle passage before. After teaching it hundreds of times, he still didn't understand it. But that visualization made him realize, my God, he turned that over and he stretched it out, and I didn't even notice it before. So universal design for learning is not about kids at the bottom of any distribution, But how do we create media that are strong enough to handle the full diversity of students we're likely to face? So if students are bored, then you're not doing a good enough universal design for learning. It's not about just raising the floor, it's about raising the ceiling as well.